You're watching the Clean Commercial Transportation Update. I'm Bill Van Amberg.
And I'm Alicia Gildy. We have exciting news. Just this week, the California Energy Commission and CALSTART announced Energized commercial vehicles, a first-of-its-kind incentive project to help accelerate the deployment of infrastructure for medium and heavy-duty electric and hydrogen vehicles. CCTU is ready to take a look at how Energized will drive zero-emission transportation in California.
This is a world-leading project, and we've put together a great lineup to help us tell its story in the next edition of CCTU, coming up this Friday, April 16th at 11 a.m. Pacific. Our featured guest is Rasul, who is the Deputy Director of Fuels and Transportation for the California Energy Commission, and our other featured guest is my colleague and partner, Alicia Gildy, who along with her Clean Fuels and Infrastructure team will be administering the Energized Commercial Vehicles Project.
Bill, I'm really looking forward to this, and during our discussion with the Energy Commission, we'll talk about how the Energized Commercial Vehicles Project will provide a user-friendly and equitable approach to providing funding resources to help meet industry demand and promote a clean and healthy community.
That is so important, and this program has all the power and simplicity of HVIP's design, but it's targeting infrastructure, so you really don't want to miss this report. Make sure to join us on Friday by registering for CCTU on our website. You'll find it at calstart.org/CCTUpdate.
And make sure to follow us on Twitter at CalStart for all the latest news, trends, and updates for the clean commercial transportation industry.
So grab yourself a cup of coffee and join us Friday, and we'll CCTU soon.
Hello everyone, it's great to be back and to CCTU for April's edition of the Clean Commercial Transportation Update. My name is Alicia Gildy, and today I am joined by my wonderful colleague, Nikki Okuk, who is filling in for Bill Van Amberg. Nikki, it's so great to have you back again. Thanks for joining us.
Alicia, it's great to be here.
Well, together we're your hosts for the next 30 minutes to bring you the latest on the trends, tools, and updates of our clean transportation industry. When we come together with you, we see it as an important opportunity to connect on a Friday after a long week to pause and reflect on industry progress. However, we also share an important bond as a community, and we know that these are difficult times and why it's so important that we show up for one another and we support each other. We want to thank you for joining us today and for being a part of the progress of our clean commercial transportation industry and for all the hard work that you do to promote clean air and clean communities. Now, CCTU would not be possible without our incredible team. Casey Okazaki is our producer. Alex Gaddis is running our controls. Megan Fine is managing our industry engagement, and Whitley Porter is making sure we look sharp. Well, I hope you all are energized and have your cup of coffee ready, as this week we are doubling down on infrastructure. Each CCTU program, we seek to highlight the latest advancements in clean commercial vehicle and infrastructure technology, whether it's during our industry news rundown or during interviews with our featured guests. We love the opportunity to talk about the latest in near to zero emission bus, truck, and freight equipment technology. We realize to meet the successful deployment of these technologies and to meet our climate goals, we need to have infrastructure in place to build the roadmap for a clean transportation future. There is one big adoption barrier that remains: the cost of infrastructure. And today we are thrilled to feature a first-of-its-kind project that will provide a solution to this challenge. And we focus our whole program around it. All right, so Nikki, before I get too carried away with all of this, help me set the stage for today's program.
Yeah, thanks, Alicia. We have a packed agenda today, but it is pretty awesome. About that first-of-its-kind project that you mentioned, on Tuesday, the California Energy Commission and CalSTART announced the $50 million Energized Commercial Vehicles Project, which is the nation's first incentive project dedicated to advancing the deployment of infrastructure for medium and heavy-duty battery electric and fuel cell vehicles. To introduce this innovative project, we're going to hear from you and your team. We're going to meet the team at the Clean Fuels and Infrastructure group here at CalSTART, who will be administering the Energized project.
Well, Nikki, we're super thrilled to be sharing information about this project with everyone. And we have some wonderful guests that we're also bringing on board, including Hannon Rasul from the California Energy Commission to share the funding agency's perspective on the significance of the Energized Commercial Vehicles Project, and to provide a user perspective on why grant funding is important to advance zero-emission commercial vehicle technologies. We're bringing back our friend Emily Conway with PepsiCo Frito-Lay to provide an update on their great zero-emission freight project at the Modesto facility, and to talk to us about why it's important that we knock down these barriers to advance clean vehicle technologies. But Nikki, before we get things started with our industry rundown, we love our polls. How about you take a pulse of how everyone's thinking on today's topic?
Yeah, you've got it, Alicia. All right, everyone, we want to hear from you. So with the potential of zero-emission infrastructure funding that may result from Biden's infrastructure plan, where should the funding be prioritized for infrastructure deployments? Should it be EVSE or hydrogen refueling station equipment? Could it be site planning for future vehicle and infrastructure deployments? Would it be the actual trenching and site upgrades? Or do you think energy, storage, and capacity building is key? So let's hear from you and take a look at what folks think the priority should be for this future funding.
Well, and I think, Nikki, this is really critical because I think we need funding for all these elements. I think everybody would say so, but it's always good to kind of get a sense of where we see the most important trigger in terms of where funding should go to support infrastructure development.
All right, we have our polling results. So number one was directly to EVSE and hydrogen refueling station equipment. So folks want to see that hardware out there in these streets. Now, next after that, it was storage, energy storage and capacity building. And then after that, we have site planning for future vehicle and infrastructure deployments. And then last but not least, it came up with the trenching and site upgrades that are needed. But as you mentioned, all of these things are needed.
Well, great job. And thank you so much, Nikki. And thank you everyone for providing your input. Well, that's really great. Well, hey, Alex, let's go ahead and get into our industry news for today and get at it, as our Bill Van Amberg would say. Well, we're excited for our friends with Lion Electric. Pride Group Enterprises has placed an order for 100 trucks from Lion Electric, representing the OEM's largest order to date. This is fantastic news. The Lion 6 and the Lion 8 trucks will be delivered this year, and Lion will partner with Pride to provide end users with charging infrastructure and telematics support. And I think that's really important. We're seeing more and more of our OEM partners providing infrastructure support. So I think that's great, especially on our topic today. All right, next up, we're going to turn our attention to hydrogen. Stellantis, the automotive group created by PSA Group and Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, recently announced an all-new mid-power hydrogen fuel cell system architecture. The company already is engaged in battery electric and plug-in hybrid segment, but would like to see the ability to achieve zero-emission driving with long range, with short refueling time, and no compromises in terms of payload by using hydrogen fuel cells. This is the first step for a mid-power fuel cell for light commercial vehicle applications. And Stelantis says it will start production by the end of 2021. Well, that's really exciting news, everyone. All right, so a study now taking a look at electric trucks and its competition with the diesel, our conventional counterpart. A study by the Sweden-based think tank, the Stockholm Environment Institute, says heavy-duty electric trucks will soon be able to compete economically with diesel trucks as battery technology rapidly improves. The study, which evaluated costs, energy use, and battery pack weight, showed that the availability of high capacity charging was key to this prediction, meaning truck batteries could be kept small and light. Oh, well, that's really exciting news. And keeping on the conversation of infrastructure, everybody, this is where I get really excited. All right, so Energized Commercial Vehicles Project. Well, you heard it at the top of the program. Infrastructure cost is the big challenge for advancing zero-emission vehicles, and we are proud to announce a new initiative that will help fleets like AC Transit shown in this clip here, get access to funding to help buy down the cost of electric charging and hydrogen refueling infrastructure. On Tuesday this week, the California Energy Commission and CALSTART announced energy infrastructure incentives for zero-emission commercial vehicles, also known as Energized, a $50 million incentive project that provides a user-friendly and equitable approach to providing funding to help buy down the cost of infrastructure while prioritizing zero-emission vehicle deployment in communities most impacted by transportation emissions. The Energized Commercial Vehicles Project is funded through the California Energy Commission's Clean Transportation Program, and CALSTART has been selected through a competitive solicitation process to administer Energize, along with its great project team, including its long-term partner and voucher administrator, Tetra Tech, and equity partner, Grid Alternatives. Building the success on CALSTART's management of the California Air Resources Board's HVIP and core, and keeping to the best practices of a voucher program, the Energized Commercial Vehicles Project will keep the spirit of HVIP with its seamless and user-friendly approach, while working closely with applicants to meet the unique needs of infrastructure deployment. Energize hopes to bring the much needed energy of infrastructure investments to California to meet the growing demand of the industry. The project offers a streamlined approach with targeted incentives and specialized assistance to help fleets successfully deploy their commercial zero-emission fleets. Now, I am proud to introduce you all to the team that's going to be managing this project on behalf of CALSTART. Great to see all of you. Thank you for joining. I'm just thrilled to be able to introduce my Clean Fuels and Infrastructure team. We have with us Jeff Cook, who is a project manager, Felicia Lucas, who's also a project manager, and then Campbell Scott, who's been with me for some time, who's also a project manager, and then who's not represented here, but I want to make sure she's here in spirit, is Amy Gower, who is our senior project manager. And this is the fantastic team that's going to be leading the administration of the Energized Commercial Vehicles Project.
Wow, Alicia and team, what an incredible project, an exciting and important opportunity for our industry and our communities. Let's kick it off with Campbell. Can you share some of the project's important strategies that promote its streamlined and user-friendly approach?
Certainly, Nikki, and thanks for that great question. So as you can see on the screen, we kind of highlight our three major strategies here, but essentially we wanted to make sure that medium and heavy duty zero emission vehicle purchasers could easily apply for these infrastructure incentives. So our first strategy was to have a simplified application process and an approved vendor network. So projects that select from pre-approved vendors can speed approvals and receive vendor support to apply, making it both easier and more affordable to apply. We also connect and leverage existing programs. So the application process is going to be integrated with other zero-emission vehicle funding programs to be pre-approved for infrastructure incentives. And finally, our third major strategy is to provide technical support through the Infrastructure Readiness Center, or the IRC. The IRC will provide resources to prepare applicants to participate and receive technical support for infrastructure planning. Although this is going to be great for any fleet, this will be particularly useful for fleets that are new to the transition to zero emission.
Oh, that's great. And Campbell, I know you guys are all ready to provide that support, and this is really exciting. And these unique strategies are important to helping the industry participate. So really glad that you could share a little bit of that. All right, so Jeff, our plan is to begin accepting applications this fall. Can you share with everyone what needs to be accomplished in order to meet that timeline?
Sure can, Alicia. Thank you. Currently, the project is in its first phase, where the CALSTART team is primarily focused on overall project design and how best to structure incentive funds for EV and hydrogen infrastructure. Development of an incentive structure for zero-emission vehicle infrastructure is an incredibly complex endeavor, and we look forward to engaging with all of our partner organizations for their knowledge and their industry expertise. One element which will be integral to the project is how to keep equity considerations top of mind, and we will look forward to engaging with our partners at Grid Alternatives to support with that effort throughout the project. Phase 2 will involve the launch of an informational website on the project before fast-tracking the recipients of third-party vehicle funding, those in most immediate need of infrastructure. This entire process is going to be a collaborative effort, and we look forward to working with all of our wonderful partners before full program implementation this fall.
Well, thank you, Jeff. That definitely helps us understand how the project will come together and the next steps ahead of us. Felicia, could you talk a little bit more about how stakeholders can get involved in project development and provide input on this project now?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Nikki. So since Energized is the first of its kind, we have to consider various opinions by hosting a series of stakeholder engagement sessions throughout the process on how we can best integrate the program. So for example, some of the key voices we look forward to hearing from are our utility partners, because they are well-versed in the business of installing infrastructure and upgrading service assets. We also want to engage with OEMs and fleets to get a better understanding of the technical and operational requirements that one will encounter throughout this process. And lastly, and arguably one of the most important voices, is actually going to come from members of the community, because this directly affects them. And the overall success of the program will be gauged by some quantitative metrics, but incorporating the qualitative one that you get from members of the community will help garner further support for programs like these in the future. So if you have questions, please reach out to infrastructure@calstart.org, and a member of our team will be in contact with you. Thanks, and back to you, Alicia and Nikki.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Felicia and team. So proud of you. And this is going to be an exciting project to work together with our broader stakeholder partnership and with the Energy Commission. So thank you, team, for reporting out on what's to come with the Energized Commercial Vehicles project. That's great. And I know that, Casey, we do have a Dropbox link that we can share in chat so that folks can check out our fact sheet on the project. All right, well, everyone, I'm excited to bring up our next guest, Hanan Rasul, who is the Deputy Director of Fuels and Transportation Division at the California Energy Commission. Hanan, it's great to have you. First of all, CalSTART is just honored to have this opportunity to manage this first of its kind project and to work with you and the wonderful team at the Energy Commission to move this project forward. Maybe you can share with us why is this project important to the Energy Commission? Why is it important that we get investments out there to support infrastructure development?
Yeah, thank you for having me. So the Energy Commission's role, for folks who don't know it, is we have a really strong focus on infrastructure. So we've made investments on light-duty passenger vehicle infrastructure, as well as in trucks and buses. In the past, we've funded infrastructure for transit buses, drayage trucks, school buses. Those often get oversubscribed. And as the medium-duty, heavy-duty market has matured, we want to have a broader program, this block grant, Energized, to really support folks. And what I really like to think about is that, look, we know we have really strong state goals and regulations when it comes to the environment, and we as a state want to de-risk that, right? And these infrastructure investments to get the upfront costs down helps de-risk the transition for folks.
Great, thank you. Now, we know that an equitable approach to this program has been really important. Could you tell us a little bit more about why this is so key to the Commission's plan?
Yeah, as a state agency, public health is so important to us. And we know that a lot of vehicles, medium duty, heavy duty vehicles, operate on diesel. And the sad truth about it is that oftentimes these are concentrated in certain neighborhoods and regions. And so we want to really make sure there's an equitable outcome from our investments and also an eye towards public health. This is really important to me personally, but also to our commission. It's something we talk about a lot and really invest in, because these are consequences and real life consequences to individuals when it comes to health, time lost at school, and things like that. So it's really important that we make a difference with these investments.
Yeah, that's right. I think you make a really good point there, Hanan. So this program, we're focusing on zero emission infrastructure versus other advanced clean infrastructure technologies. Tell us, why is it important that we're focusing on the zero emission, on battery electric and hydrogen fuel cell infrastructure?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And what's really important is that these vehicles help us get to an end goal, right? These goals, again, it's for public health, it's for the climate crisis. What's really nice about it too, is that these vehicles often have a lower operating cost. So very little maintenance, If you manage your fuel and the rate design properly, cheaper to operate from a fuel perspective. So we really want to encourage a direction that we all need to get to over a period of time. And again, since we're an organization that focuses a lot on infrastructure, we can help de-risk that transition for folks. I'd also note, for folks who haven't started this already, start now. You know, the thing is, there is a learning curve to these technologies, and we're helping provide those tools and incentives to do it. So whether that's starting with 1 or 2 or 3 vehicles, or starting with 30 vehicles, I would really encourage folks to take the opportunity that's presented here to go through that learning curve. And, you know, there's going to be some challenges and all that, but it's such a great opportunity. You know, these new technologies offer an opportunity to do things smarter and cheaper and more efficient than the old way that everyone's gotten used to.
Yeah, what a great message. Get started now. Which makes me want to ask, what will be the CEC's future role in accelerating these deployments as rapid ZEV adoption comes to market?
So our primary focus will continue to be infrastructure and analysis. We're a very data-driven organization, so we do a lot of reporting. And I want to note our sister agencies as well. So the Air Resources Board does a lot on the vehicle incentive piece. The Public Utility Commission does a lot with rate design and utility investments. On the PUC side, they've approved a lot of good medium-duty, heavy-duty programs at the utilities and advanced really good rate design to help with demand charges. And so we'll continue to focus on infrastructure on a statewide basis. We really want to look at access. It's really important for us to do that analysis, see what the needs are going to be ahead of time, and then plan towards that. And again, I'll note that the public health component is just so important for us, but also the economic opportunities here. These investments are in-state jobs. It's infrastructure, and we're talking about engineer jobs, design jobs, construction jobs, and manufacturing. So there's so many great opportunities to advance the economy as well.
Hannon, I think you hit it on the head, and I think there's just so many wonderful benefits of this project. And we're really looking forward to working with you guys. You have such wonderful energy to help us support and advance our Energized project. And maybe before we move on, Hannon, tell us what are you looking forward most to with this project?
Yeah, this is, you know, a little bit in the weeds, but something we think about a lot is, when is that tipping point going to occur? Because it always fascinates me. The costs continue to decrease, and the price of batteries has come down 90% in the last 10 years. And so vehicle range is getting better, battery density is getting better while the cost is coming down. And I'm always curious, how quickly can we reach that tipping point? Because we often set ambitious goals, and inevitably you have the naysayers saying, you can't do it, why are we changing things? They want to stick to the status quo. But we often hit these goals and ahead of time, you know, a lot of the times as well. And what'll be interesting to see is, how does it look a year from now, 5 years from now? Because I remember when I started on this, you know, 11 years in the energy industry, 5 years in transportation, people said, well, you're never going to do X. You're never going to have zero emission Class 8 trucks. Well, okay, you can do it, but it'll just be regional. And now we're moving a little bit every year. And what people thought was not possible previously, you're having to rethink it quite quickly.
Well, Hannon, well, thank you so much for your leadership and for the inspiration you bring to the Energy Commission to keep projects like this moving forward. And we're looking forward to working with you and the great team at the CEC on this project. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Speaking of naysayers, we're going to go on to the folks at Frito-Lay who are never the naysayers. Emily Conway is always leading the way and showing us what is truly possible. We're going to be taking a look at the transformative work that's happening at their Transform Modesto project. Here's some footage taking a look at the project as it's underway. Emily, it is really great to have you back on our broadcast. And what we're seeing here from your Modesto facility is just a snapshot, but we'd really like to get an update from you on some of the progress that your team is making there on site.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me come back. I'm so excited to give an update about our Transforming Modesto project, but also talk about how it is tying into our increase in our goal as an organization. We previously had a goal to reduce our emissions by 20%. Our new goal is to reduce our direct emissions by 75% by 2030 and our indirect emissions by 40% by 2030. So this program, the Transforming Modesto project, is feeding into that. It's a showcase for how we will achieve those goals over the next 9 years. So what we've done to date is we have put in place some electric forklifts, box trucks, electric yard tractors, as well as compressed natural gas tractors that fuel with renewable natural gas, and then all of the supporting infrastructure for that equipment. That has resulted last year in an over 50% emission reduction for the fleet in Modesto. And this project isn't even complete yet. So we are making a lot of really exciting progress.
Emily, that's awesome. And your team is awesome. You're awesome. Thank you so much for this great update, and great to see all of this, rubber hitting the ground, and all the infrastructure being deployed. So talking about infrastructure today, and that you're deploying all these different technologies, which is really cool, right? There's so many things that support the solution, right? There's no one size fits all approach to technology advancement. And I love that at this site, you guys are deploying all these technologies. Talk a little bit about the infrastructure that is supporting these technologies. Like, what went into deploying all these different types of infrastructure to advance these technologies?
Alicia, you're absolutely right. And the fact that we put into place so many different types of equipment meant that we had a lot of different types of infrastructure that would be required to support them. So for the CNG tractors, we put in place a nearby fueling station, but for the EVs, what we did was we wanted to require a standard for the connector, right? And I think as an industry, this is something that we're talking about a lot, because otherwise you end up having 3 different types of charging infrastructure, none of which are interoperable, right? So for example, for our box trucks and our yard tractors, they both leverage the CCS1 charging connector, and that enables them to use the same charging equipment, even though they actually charge at 2 different rates. And so the box trucks will charge at a little over 60 kilowatts, while the yard tractors, which have a much more intense duty cycle and operate 22 hours a day, are needing to charge at a much faster rate.
Well, that's really interesting. Now, at the top of the hour here, we spoke a little bit about one of the biggest barriers to infrastructure, which is cost. And so we'd really like to hear from you how funding and incentives played a critical role in this project, and then what you might see as the potential for Energized to help Frito-Lay further your zero emission goals.
Absolutely. So as a part of the Transforming Modesto initiative, we were funded by the California Climate Investments through their ZANZEF program. And that funding, like all other funding, is pivotal at this point in development for enabling these large-scale programs. It enables companies to have their dollars stretch further, to have their dollars be able to put into place more electric vehicles at a larger scale. And I anticipate that will continue to be the case for these initiatives, especially because infrastructure is not currently something that you budget for when you are doing a diesel replacement, right? It's a new cost that you're having to justify. And of course, we're very excited about some of the savings that we're seeing that are going to help justify those costs. But grants certainly do help move that bar. And because we have that 75% emission reduction by 2030, we need to be doing a lot of initiatives. We need to be accelerating the pace, and grants play a huge role in that acceleration.
Emily, that's great. And thank you so much. It's always wonderful to have a partner who's in the industry that's, boots on the ground, putting these technologies in place and is learning so much on how to do it and how to do it right. And sometimes we stumble, we pick up, we learn, and we advance. And you guys have just been really incredible. Before we move on, and we're getting close to the end of our program, which I can't believe how time flies. What would you say, and as we're looking at wanting to provide technical assistance to fleets as they're evaluating their infrastructure planning needs, what would you say are like a couple of the best tips that you've learned as it relates to infrastructure planning and deployment?
Well, I actually agree with get started now, right? Have the conversation early and start with the utility. You know, if the utility is going to need to do upgrades and it may take a year, you need to have that conversation now if you're planning to have a project even 2 years from now. And so definitely starting the conversation now, and then also thinking about, are there, you know, creative ways to right size the infrastructure to make sure that the investment is exactly what you need, and making sure that you're having software that will be able to manage your loads and keep your costs down.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Emily. You're wonderful. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate you sharing all of your best practices and all your progress. Well, Nikki, we're almost at the end of our time here. Do you want to quickly give us a run through of some great upcoming events that we can expect and that we want to make sure that we have our audience tuning in for?
Sure. We have a presentation presented by Black & Veatch on April 28th regarding fleet decarbonization. On the 29th, they'll be zeroing in on ZEB, so that's for our transit partners regarding transit buses. And then on May 12th, there'll be a webinar, Taking Commercial Fleet Electrification. Sorry, but I'm going to stop there so that Alicia can go ahead and make our final wrap-up announcements. There's been some changes to our schedule. Let's hear it.
All right. Well, Nikki, you're the best. And thanks again for being my wonderful co-host today. You're fabulous. All right. So folks, we're going to have our next CCTU on May 21st. We are moving CCTU for our 30-minute program to once a month. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to do something really fun, and we want you all to check it out. What we're going to do each week is what we're calling CCTU Take 5. And it's going to be 5 minutes of us covering the latest trends, tools, and updates, and even interviews with experts on the field that are deploying clean commercial vehicle technologies and infrastructure. So we want you to continue tuning in with us. We're going to continue engaging with you, and we want to thank you for making Fridays your CCTU day. Thanks everyone for joining, and we look forward to seeing you on May 21st at 11 a.m. Pacific.